The following podcast may contain adult language and an abundance of salt, so get ready, nerds, because we're talking to Chris Arruda, the post-production producer on our favorite Apple TV show, C.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us on the Salty Nerd Podcast special episode where we get to interview people from C who actually like us, which is crazy cool to us. I'm joined, as always, by my fantastic panel of nerds. Matt Vader is here. Welcome, sir.
Dude, we are talking to another person from this show.
Right?
I'm freaking out.
It's weird,
Again,
man.
I say I don't know why they want to talk to us because
we're kind of assholes.
we talk a lot of shit. It's crazy.
Also here, Jude. Welcome.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us today.
Pleasure to
And
be here.
you mentioned earlier that we catch a lot of stuff. It's because we're obsessed with you.
Clearly.
And the frustrated producer of the show, Matthew Kadish.
Yes, from one producer to another, Chris, thank you for coming on here. I think we saw one of your comments on our YouTube videos, and we were like, we got to get this guy on our show.
Yeah.
So thank you for showing up.
I'm so happy. You invited me via the comments like a month ago, and I never saw it. So I'm glad you went through Joe. I think you went through Jonathan's assistant to find me. So thank you for doing that.
So, Chris, to get started with this, I want to know a little bit more about you personally. How did you get started in the effects and editing side, the production of shows and stuff like that? Is this a long-time career for you? Is this something that you kind of fell into?
I've been a producer for my whole career, but the first 27 years of it was a producer of TV commercials. And the like Verizon and whatever, Disney parks, and I wasn't just a post producer. With those, you go through casting and locations and all that. I'm on set, unlike this show where I'm just post. Advertising was all the way through, and then I saw my husband, who you guys saw when he came in to help.
Your tech guy.
My tech guy. He'd been working in TV for a while, and I saw him go to work so delighted and come back from work just as delighted, and I wasn't doing that in advertising. I'd been in it probably for too long, and at one point about 7 years ago, he hired me away from advertising to work on Happy-ish. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it was a Showtime series, half hour. And it was about a guy in advertising, actually. So I started, Brad and I worked together. His name's Brad Carpenter, and he and I worked together on 5 shows, 5 one-season shows. And we remained married, so that's cool.
Good for you.
Yeah.
And then I started with Jonathan, actually, was the first show that I was running my own department, where Brad and I weren't working together anymore.
Okay.
Was that Warrior?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, it was first season of Warrior.
We all just started to watch that recently, and it's been freaking awesome. I've been enjoying the hell out of it.
That is such a delight to work on that show.
So, Chris, basically, a lot of people out there don't know what a producer is or what they do, including 3 of my co-hosts here. They ask me every day, Matt, what are you doing? So I was wondering if you could give us kind of a breakdown of like, what is a producer, what do they do, and what in particular your position on C is?
Right. So, what is a producer? There's so many definitions to that, right? It's funny, I when you asked that question, I looked it up, and the first thing I saw was one who produces. So like, aren't you not supposed to do that? You're not supposed to use a word in a definition. But, in general, right, a producer is responsible for a certain aspect of the production on this side of things, and in advertising too. It's someone who has an eye on the budget, has the big picture. In my case, producer means I am everything from dailies until we give the finished product to Apple that's my responsibility.
Wow.
And I have so many talented people working with me to get it all done, but I'm the one that has the big picture. I think a lot of, a lot of people think of producer as the guy who gets the money. That's kind of the old Hollywood thinking, and that is definitely not, and it still is kind of, in indie film, that's still true. In TV, it's the money comes from the studios and the networks. We don't have to worry about that part. We just have to figure out how to spend it.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I noticed you said it's TV. When I watch a show like this, I feel like I'm watching a movie. Is this more closer to producing a movie than like a television show, or how do you compare the two different things?
Yeah, we basically, especially these 2 seasons of C, same director. That's partially, when we talk about COVID, I can get into that. Why there was one director who, after episode 1, 2, and 3 was shut down for COVID, and there was one director shooting the rest of season 2 and all of season 3. So it's like, and everything shot out of order. So it's basically two 8-hour movies that we're creating, and the visual effects are feature worthy visual effects, the sound, everything. I mean, Francis Lawrence was the first director attached to this. He directed the first 2. He's also an executive producer still, and obviously he comes from big movies. He did the the Mockingbird and
the Hunger Games.
The Hunger Games movies. So the at the get-go, and I didn't have anything to do with season 1, but it was always meant to be it was meant to look like a feature, feel like a feature, shot like a feature, and so we carried that on, once Jonathan took over.
Nice. That's cool. So when you're making a show like this, which we just talked about, feels like a movie, it has the production value of a movie. And then with COVID getting kind of thrown in the mix, what are some of the more challenging aspects of producing a show this big?
Yeah. During COVID specifically?
Yeah.
Well, a show this big is always going to be a challenge because, I know Jonathan talked about the challenges on set. The challenges in post, are ratcheted up as well. The COVID situation caused a lot of issues. One is what I mentioned. We cross-board everything. Usually TV is shot in pairs of 2, like a blocks. So you have episode 1 and 2 will be this director. Episode 3 and 4 will be this director. But because of how we had to shoot because of COVID, and because of schedules, like Jason's schedule, because we had to shoot him out, we had to shoot everything. Every day there might have been 3 different episodes, that we're shooting and getting dailies in for. That's very different, and it affects post too, because everything locks at the same time. We finish shooting all the episodes at the same time, which is not usually how TV is, right? So this is backlog. Right now, we just got episode 2 out to the producers today, to the studio.
So episode 2 of season 3, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Oh yeah, we are very excited.
Yeah, they're really good. I think I've seen them all at this point at some stage or another. They're very rough. Wow, if you could see them now, it's all a lot of blue screens and.
That's a nice segue to my next question for you. Was like, for this show, a lot of the stuff takes place outside. There's a lot of outdoor shots, a lot of landscapes. You wouldn't consider this to be like a real CGI heavy show, except for maybe a few scenes during like some battles and stuff. So like, what goes into the daily process of all this blue screening for like outdoor shots?
Right. So Pensa, when we're in Pensa, which is meant to look, like a college campus. That was, we started shooting Pensa. This is another COVID thing. We started shooting it in about 2 hours north of the city of Toronto. And the decision was made mid-season to shoot it much closer to Toronto. So, the production doesn't have to put people up overnight and all that. And so the big castle, the palace, was no longer there. So the palace became a blue screen that we would then have to put in. And so most of the shots, when you see the palace behind the characters, it's not really there. There's a big blue screen there.
Okay.
There's one shot. There's one shot, and it's in the reel that I sent you, Matt, where Margaret is up against a blue screen, like she's almost touching it, and the camera pulls out, and she walks away and into the steps in front of the palace right before she gives her speech.
Wow.
In 7, and
I'm always amazed at just the level of things are
Realism,
these days.
yeah.
Yeah, it's wild because there was a time when you could look at something and go, "Oh, that's CGI, that's fake,
Yeah.
that's bullshit." but now it's really hard to tell now. And I used to be really fascinated with physical things and and just being there. I never felt like that could ever be replaced. But man, it's I feel like tech is to the point now where it's really hard to tell.
It is. So I have a story that it fits right in here. So another problem with COVID is, I think Jonathan talked about this, we could only have 10 people on set at any given time. And we have, in the script, we have in 208 an army of 350 Travantians, and we could have 10. We always knew we were going to have some, crowd extensions. But if you can have hundreds of extras, even 100 extras, you can frame some shots so that you just assume there's more people there. But we had to put digital Travantians and digital Pensons and so many. And when we first, a company called El Ranchito out of Spain did a lot of our digital. Did most of 8 and did the digital Travantian army, and we showed production a test. We took a scene from 201. I think it was right before Baba gets caught in Cervantes in the first episode, and we put in some digital soldiers to a scene where actual soldiers, extras, were shot, and we showed it to production. And the first reaction was, "What am I looking at?" This, basically they didn't know they were looking at visual effects,
Right.
because you really, it's creepy how well these things move. They move like people. But so much of the battling soldiers, Travantians, in the final episodes are not really there.
Is it cheaper to do it in post-production and make those AI characters, or is it cheaper to have extras on set and just
I believe
film
the
them?
term you're looking for is more cost effective.
I'm sorry, I'm not fancy enough.
That's a great question, and it's asked a lot by production. There's a lot of discussion between post and production of what's going to be more cost effective, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you have 200, 300 soldiers that you have to dress in that armor, that's incredibly expensive. So in that case, it's cheaper to do digital. But there are plenty of instances where if we could have had 40 extras, we wouldn't have had any digital people in the shot at all. Mm-hmm.
I imagine it's very taxing on my best friend Natalie Bronfman to dress that many people.
I just listened to her interview, and she. I even learned some things on that. I didn't realize that the Pensons have ball bearings in their shoes. I learned some things on that one. Yes, there was something else that Natalie brought up. I can't remember right now.
What was it? The peacock feathers and horse shit?
No, but I was.
Can you digitally do that on Matt Vader?
That's
right
my
now?
smell.
I was waiting for that. I know what it was. She talked about the visors and how we have to devise visors that are, see-through, which is true. They could the stunt people could see a little bit, right? And we have to slightly, affect those visors, because sometimes you can tell that you can see through it, right? And it doesn't look like metal. It's supposed to be metal. But in 8, the the stunts were so intense, and there were so many stunt people, and it just was too dangerous to even have the visors that you could sort of see through. So there were no visors, so we put in all the visors later on, and that was for safety. So
something like C. Obviously, like there are a lot of effect shots that are kind of like invisible, like they're just kind of like there, but you don't notice them, and that's like how you know that they're good. So I want to ask you, in season 2 of C, like how many effect shots were in like the entire season, and are there any shots in particular that audiences might be surprised to find that were actual effects?
I just asked my post producer, so I want to give props to our VFX supervisor, Chris Wright, and our VFX producer, Parker Chihak, because they're a department within my department, and they kicked ass, and we barely got these shows done in time. It's crazy out there after COVID. Everybody's working, and there were 2,600 visual effect shots for the season, which is more than Endgame. So that's good.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. That movie's half CGI. That's insane. There's another.
You didn't finish answering my question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Like, what are some shots that people might be surprised to find were actually like?
Well, I already mentioned the Pensa castle. We certainly hope people don't notice that it's digital. All the background in 8, where the battle starts, and you see all those mountains and snow, misty trees and all that. None of that's actually there. Wow. It's all blue screen. So
are Jason Momoa's muscles real?
How dare you?
Those are real. The only thing we affect on the actors are the eyes, and that's a big reason why every single shot of a blind person in C is a visual effect.
Oh, I just thought those were contacts or something.
Well, remember we asked Christian,
we asked that,
and he was like, "No, thankfully, I know, because all the actors are like, thank God I don't have to wear contacts."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
awesome.
it's definitely better for the actors. For post, it's a lot, and a lot of it's great. We have vendors that specifically work on the eyes, and it's detailed, because if those aren't right, you're going to be able to tell that they need to have depth, and they need to react to light.
So you're telling us every time we see someone's kind of like glazed over eyes in the show, that's a digital effect?
Yes.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
That's attention to detail too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a cultural thing. We watched this other show called Mythic Quest, and in that show they have this thing where it's like the art department, give it to the art department, and it's kind of like this joke, like the art department just gets completely shit on, and they get the worst tasks possible, and they say, do it by tomorrow,
and they have to do like everything.
Yeah, they have to do everything.
Yeah.
My question to you is, like, is that phrase, "we'll fix it in post," is that just like the bane of your existence?
Yeah. I heard that a lot earlier in my career, when I was in advertising. Now I feel like it's just a given that we're going to fix it in post. Like, there were so many things that came up in season 2, again, largely because of COVID, that we post had to do it. The 10 people on set rule. Also, we couldn't really do on camera blood, which there's a department that on set that usually handles that. It's a makeup thing, part of makeup, and they couldn't do it because of the protocol of having to reset. It involved too many people within the inner circle of the COVID. COVID was kind of, the testing was most concentrated around the actors and the director, and so more people in there trying to, and also it takes time to do multiple shots with blood. So most of the blood we added as well.
Huh. I didn't realize that. I always think, like, when you see blood splatter and stuff, I'm like, oh, that's a cool little gel pack or something like that.
Yeah. And a lot of shows it is. We just again, partially because of COVID and how fast we had to move and not being able to, because it's a mess. To do another take with a splatter of blood, it takes some time. You got to get a new, get a wardrobe in and clean up and start over. But yeah, so that's another thing that people may not realize are visual effects. I mean, everything, we don't want people to ever think that it's visual effects. I watched Free Guy this weekend, which was really fun.
We haven't seen it yet.
I recommend it, but all the effects a lot of the effects in that were meant to be, visual effects. It's about a video game.
So I think I'm a member of every single existing C fan group on Facebook, and I just wanted, it's not a question, but I just want to say like you have a lot of fans that are just so hungry for more C, and like every day there's a post from somebody like, when are we getting season 3? When are we getting season 3? What's happening in season 3? So I just want to say like it's such a pleasure to get to talk to like the cast and crew and to give people more C in the interim between seasons 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
So as the post-production producer, you probably you oversee the editing and stuff like that. Were there any like plot lines or anything that was cut out of season 2 that, we may have no idea of that you think might be like, you were like, oh, I wish we could have fit that into the show somehow?
That we shot?
Yeah.
There wasn't that. I don't think there were any plot lines that were shot. There were definitely scenes that were eliminated that we didn't think we needed, especially in 8, because that was so long. That was like an hour and a half long, and Apple was like, yeah, no, it's not going to be that long. And also, because of the visual effects and everything in that episode, we had to try to contain it within an hour or so. And I can't really think of what was cut out, but there were definitely quite a few scenes cut out there.
Were there any scenes that made Kofun actually likable as a character?
Leave that boy alone.
So funny. It's funny. One of our editors also would joke about Kofun a lot. So when you guys started doing that, Archie's such a good guy too, and I only know the actors from ADR. When they come in to record, and he's British and just a great guy, and what he's able to do, for that character is, I think great. I love what he does with what he's handed.
Yeah, he's such a good sport.
We have nothing against Archie, really don't. But I feel like the writers and the actors have done such a great job of making us loathe Queen Kane and just be exasperated with Kofun
and his decision making.
Yeah, it's just like, oh my God. It's like, as far as Queen Kane goes, I haven't loathed the character as much as her since Game of Thrones with Cersei. So they've done a really good job with her. So
and sticky fingers, as Jonathan would call him.
Yeah.
Can you settle something for us? How do you pronounce Archie's last name? Do you know?
I don't, actually.
Oh, God bless you. Thank you.
At least we're not the only ones. That's good.
Yeah, I feel like Queen, like, just to piggyback on what you were saying, Vader, like Queen Kane and Kofun are like the power couple of like hatred. Like, oh God, I am so infuriated with Kofun every single episode, and also I hate Queen Kane, but like I don't want him to go anywhere because I fucking love them.
It's fun to have villains that and Queen Kane is always escaping death. There's so many times where she should have died, and of course we can't. She can't die because she's a fan favorite.
Is her skin dagger a digital effect? How do they do that?
Oh, that's a good question.
That is a prop.
It's a prop.
What's an effect in those scenes is obviously the blood.
You mean they didn't actually kill Alfre Woodard?
And sometimes a little bit of an indentation on the skin to make it look real. But yeah, that's definitely some prosthetic, to make it look like a pocket of skin.
That is really cool.
So working with Apple TV, it's a fairly new streaming service that's out as in comparison to like HBO or Netflix or something like that. And we know they're trying to make their mark in the world as far as streaming services goes and shows. What has been your dealing with the corporation, with Apple as a producer? What kind of challenges have you met? Are they like really accommodating? Jonathan kind of spoke pretty highly of them.
Yeah, he did.
So I was kind of curious what your relationship with Apple is.
I'm glad you asked that. Apple has been, and I'm not just saying this, they really put up with a lot with post because we were behind. I don't know if I should say this or not, but we were behind in every delivery because of the visual effects, because there's so many reasons. The amount of visual effects that we were planning on when we started season 2 and then what we ended up with after COVID, because we started before COVID, it was just so massive that those 2,600 shots. The industry, because no one was working, for a year, I don't know, however many months people were off, but once the industry started up again, everybody was like, we need it now, especially Apple. Apple doesn't have the library of, they're not Disney or, Warner Media, which is HBO Max, or Paramount, they don't have a catalog of content. So, and they're just kicking out some great stuff. And they were so accommodating to us and what our needs were. They wanted the best show as well. And I was the one that had to tell them, we're not going to make that delivery date, which was not fun. But they, and I would talk to their ops people. They're the ones that have to, we were really close to the air dates on those last episodes, which is unheard of for a streamer because they go day and day all over the world, 150 countries, with the episode the same day. So imagine the kind of work that has to be done to make sure all those versions are ready to go.
Yeah. We say all the time that we feel like we're the only people talking about the Apple TV shows because they're just not getting the attention that a lot of other streaming platforms, their shows are getting. And it's just such great, rich content. Mm-hmm. And you can tell that they're just putting so much effort into making good content for people. And it's just infuriating that it's not really getting the attention that we feel like it deserves.
Yep, I would agree with that. We've got to remember though, it's a fledgling. It's such a massive company, and they've been in our consciousness for so long. But as a TV studio, they're a couple years old.
Yeah.
And and they happen to start right around COVID, and so I think that people are starting to recognize the quality content that's coming out of Apple, and I believe that will grow. They're here to stay, right? It's Apple. They're gonna keep creating content and good stuff,
I wanted to ask you kind of along the same lines of talking about Apple because of the way streaming services work and the way that they create original content that's basically out there forever, and once it's been released, you can binge it. I'm wondering why they're locking shows into the typical 1 hour per episode or half hour per episode traditional kind of broadcast TV model. As a post-production producer, do you think it's possible for one episode to be an hour and a half long and another episode to be 40 minutes long and stuff like that, where you don't streaming doesn't need to lock these things into certain time periods?
Right, because we're not relying on advertisers. And I think there is 302 that we just sent out today is 45. It's around 45 minutes long. So some of our shows are longer. If it goes over 65 minutes, something kicks in with the guilds where it costs them more money to broadcast it. And so there's some, and people are, I don't know, this is a culture of, give it to me quick. And, I don't know that people would really hang on for a lot of hour and a half episodes.
Oh, we totally
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, you guys are special though.
Oh, thanks for putting it so nicely.
Yeah, you know, like we heard from a lot of people in the post-production end of things that they kind of listened to our show while they were working. And I'm just kind of curious, like, have we pissed anyone off over there? Like, are they listening to us as like, oh man, like these nerds are jerks.
Okay.
Yeah, is anyone coming for us? Can you warn us?
Okay, all right. Vader, say something so that I can see your face. Okay,
Hi, I'm
Vader,
right
we were, yeah, there you go. No, we were, it's funny because no one's mad. No one's mad at anyone. We're just happy you guys are talking about us. But episode 8 was in production, and all of us, like, we barely got that thing out. There were all-nighters, and like, it was so hard to do that episode. And so when you ripped it apart, and
It doesn't make any sense, man. Throw on a river? What? Yeah, I don't know.
that was the most if of all of the sequences in C, we call that the Corey sequence where the ice is breaking and all that. That was the most complicated visual effects sequence that we did by far.
Why didn't they just have somebody else push the rock over?
All right, let it go, Vader. It's done.
It's such a dramatic, like a Greek god kind of. Yeah, no.
Listen, shooting this looks better than shooting this.
Yeah, of course.
So, Jesus, just let him do his job.
And he's putting himself in harm's way, so it's more exciting.
It's like, why did Ren come above the water with her armor still on?
I don't think she had time to take it off. She had to swim. The thing that doesn't make sense is when you see Ren later on, her hair is dry.
I assumed it was frozen.
Yeah, we could. We did notice it. There are some things that we have to just let go. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to season 1, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Fine.
How come there hasn't been any more haka dances? That's what I want to know.
Well,
You were really into the haka.
I know, it was
dance.
awesome.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
Like,
that's
man.
Momoa's thing, right? That's his
I
culture,
think
man.
so.
He brings that game. But that speaks.
And also,
that's-
it's also the Alkines tribe thing.
Yeah,
So,
and they're all dead.
Yeah.
But no, that speaks to the cast and crew. You guys have all been great. You all had a sense of humor. You listen to us like rip apart these shows and then also love them. It's kind of a weird relationship we have, but I have to just praise you guys for having a sense of humor and having a thick skin and having fun with it. And then coming on our show and chatting with us about it. It blows my mind. And for me, it puts you guys a league above a lot of other creators out there who would listen to something that we'd say and just be like, screw those stupid nerds.
I mean, the people from Invasion are never going to come on our show.
I haven't heard any of your invasion stuff,
man.
nor have I watched that show yet. But I will
It's
say,
okay, you don't need to.
I was joking mostly, Vader, about
know.
your.
It's all good, man.
Because everybody in post is watching you guys, and we love it because you have so much fun talking about the show, and it's really fun to watch. And you wouldn't, if you didn't love the show, you wouldn't talk about it for an hour after every episode. It's clear that you guys like it. And the very beginning, when you notice the differences between season 1 and season 2, that was delightful for me as well. I've been working with Jonathan since the beginning of Warrior, and I know what he adds to stories, and his stories are always a lot of characters, and usually it's family stuff, like and often siblings. The Warrior story is really a big sibling rivalry, and there's obviously sibling stuff in this, and I just the first season set the stage for a very serious epic, right? And I think we kept that serious epic scope of the show and continued on with the characters, but Jonathan added a lot of characters and humor and a sense of irony. I think there's just, it makes it more, for me, it makes it more approachable.
Well, I told Jonathan Dropper that I feel like the seeds are there for a really hardcore fandom to come out of this. It's like I can see C-Con, in a couple of years. I can see people cosplaying.
We're all gonna be dressed up.
I can see the panels with you and everybody else on it with, Kadish maybe hosting it or something at a
What am I, shop litter?
or whatever, at like a Comic-Con, or something. I can totally see it. You know?
Especially
It's
with somebody with Jason Momoa behind this show.
Yeah.
Like, that's a huge catch for you guys. Have you worked with Jason before on anything, or is this your first time working with him?
This is the first time I've worked with Jason. He's obviously an incredibly hard worker. He had injured his shoulder before shooting that fight scene on the bridge between him and Dave Bautista. And there are some instances where there's a stunt double, and there are actually instances where we have to change the face of the stunt double so that you can't tell it's a stunt double. But for the most part, he did so much of that fight, and I know he was in pain. It was a fairly serious injury. That guy worked so damn hard, and especially season 2 in the snow. It was those actors. I'd look at dailies and I thought, oh man, that's just got to be miserable. Post has it good. We're, especially now during COVID, we're home mostly. We don't have to go to set. Especially when set is out of the country. I do go to set occasionally, and for Warrior, for season 3 of Warrior, I'll end up going down to Cape Town, which I love, just to sort of kick things off, because that's where that show is shot.
So that brings me to one of my questions I was wondering about. So we're all big fans of Warrior also, and I know that you worked with Jonathan on that. Like, how did you come about, like, working on projects together? Was that like a coincidence, or how did that come about?
No, it was, I guess you could call it fate or a coincidence. I was actually in Thailand taking some time off, and I got HBO reached out about Warrior for me to be the post producer on the show, and I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I'll do that. I wasn't even at the time. I wasn't much of a martial arts fan or any of that. But when HBO calls, like okay,
I bet.
And then I remember my first call with Jonathan while I was still away. He was like, so what'd you think of the script? And I said, script? No one gave me a script. And he was like, okay, read the script and we'll talk. And we did. And the script is, it immediately got me. I love reading his scripts. And, we started, we didn't know each other at all, started working on that show together. I feel really fortunate to have such a great working relationship with Jonathan Dropper. He's pretty prolific, right? And he's just fun to work with. He doesn't bring stress into a room, and he's really, his shows are just pretty fucked up, right? They're like,
Warrior gets dark real quick.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Banshee? Jesus.
Brad and I we binged Banshee during the lockdown, and it was such a fun ride, that show. I hadn't seen any of that, but they're odd. They're unlike a lot of other stuff that's on television right now. So they're really fun to work on.
Oh, I was just gonna say, being a producer, so Kadish is our producer, and we call him the hardest working nerd on our show. And I was just wondering if you have any advice for him on how to delegate or how to extend the day.
Get some Apple money.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Do you have minions? How can he get minions?
Kadish, I assume you don't have a department of 25 people like I do.
It's just me.
But
That's all he has.
Yeah, no, I was going to say there's other nerds. Just get the nerds involved and delegate. Make them do some shit.
Vader, you're going to learn how to edit whether you like it or not.
Listen, I told you I wanted to. It's time. I got a real job.
I told him I would like to learn how, and he said, babe, I don't think it's good for our relationship if I teach you how to do that. And I was like, you make a great point.
As a matter of fact, just yesterday, I called Alex up on the phone because I was playing with a YouTube video. And I'm like, hey, man, I got this Premiere Pro thing open up. How do I put an intro clip in front of my main movie clip? And he's just like, watch a YouTube video.
I said Google a tutorial, bro. I don't know.
And that's what I did. Hey, is there any equipment that you use that you're just like a diehard fan of, or what's your go-to stuff?
Oh, equipment, software. Yeah, I mean, we're working on a show, HBO, Apple, you have you have access to pretty much anything that's out there, which is really fantastic. We haven't talked about sound much, but the sound finishing on this show is really wonderful, and I love being in the sound mix. And we mix in Atmos, which means there's 18 speakers on our mix stage. Wow. So I'm hearing the Atmos mix in a way that most of America is never going to hear, the mix. But like, I remember when we were putting the main title together, and we were coming up with, we had this great song, but we wanted to put some effects in there too. And there's a moment where a bird kind of comes from behind camera and sweeps through the forest, and Dave Patterson, my sound supervisor, was like, oh wait, here, listen to this. The bird's going to like come in behind you and swoosh over your head and get really loud here and go off. And I love that stuff. I love
That's awesome.
So I believe, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, one of our people on our Discord server is a big fan, and they said that they watched the show a second time, but they turned the sound up and the lights off, and they just put a blindfold or something on.
No,
right?
it's the AD version of it's like
because there's like stuff that people are like, I'm just gonna miss it, but if you like watch it in a dark room, you're gonna hear stuff that you're not gonna pick up on visually watching the show, and that's
there was a
cool.
moment where Magra was with Queen Kane, and it was when they realized that the baby had died or whatever. And I guess they said if you turn the volume like super high up and you turn the AD and it describes what you're listening to, it says that there's an actual heartbeat, but there's only one heartbeat and not two. Yeah. And it was like a big moment for the show. Okay. And for the normal people, we completely missed that. Yeah. And I'm like, that's freaking super cool. Yeah.
But that's also something that we noticed from season 1 to season 2 is like how much more like attention you paid to like the sound and the feel and the smell of things, and putting that into the show that I think was missing from season 1, like all of the echolocation and the snapping and stuff. Like, God, that was just so good to put all of those layers into this world that you're creating, and we just really, really enjoyed that.
Well, again, you guys notice stuff that, that heartbeat, while it may be hard to hear when everything's going on, but, there's so many instances of that in our sound design. Like the show, especially a show that is so dependent on sound, because that's what our characters are, the echolocators that you mentioned, what we can do with sound to kind of give that space. The Travantian spikes and their boots, stingers. There's so many things that we add that may or may not be noticed, but is for me really delightful. As far as other software, like the visual effects vendors that we use, and I think we had 20 vendors on season 2, which is a lot for a show. I don't think we'll have that many in season 3, but they've got unbelievable software, and a lot of it they create themselves and are able to, the company that did our Digital Soldiers found a process that nobody else was doing, which made it work so well and actually was cheaper than a lot of other companies out there. So there's so many innovators out there with visual effects. I mean, our stuff is all cut on Avid, which is pretty standard, for the industry. But the other thing I really love about finishing is the color. You guys mentioned in one episode that like, oh, it's all kind of blue and dark, and that there was a tone that Michael Sneeman, our DP, who's brilliant, who's also the DP for Warrior, And the look of Warrior is so different. But I remember when I first saw the first episode and the look that Michael was going for, it was a little more desaturated and cold. And the season 2 was winter, right? Mm-hmm. And so they went for that thematically. When we were outside, it just felt and looked cold. And season 3, I will say, is completely different than that.
Oh, cool. Ooh. New season. I had speaking of like the blue filtering and stuff, there was an episode where Baba at night was being attacked by those assassins, and I was wondering, was that a visual effect where they put like a filter over the lens? Was that filmed during the day and they just made it look like night? How did that episode come about?
So every single night scene in C is shot during the day.
Okay.
So well done for noticing that. There's no real filters, right? We don't the way they go about it is in processing the film, but we really labor over those day for night shots. And I remember there was one that you guys were mentioning how dark it was, because we went darker than a lot of shows go. And in one instance, which you guys brought up, and I think it was episode 4, we went too dark. And Jonathan calls me the day it's airing and says, "Why is it so dark?"
And I can't see anything.
These salty nerds said it was too dark.
No, you didn't. What you guys said was you gave us props saying, "Wow, what attention to detail. Blind people can't see. They wouldn't have any light at night."
Yeah.
So, you were praising us for something that I actually had to go back into those episodes, redo the night scenes, brighten them up. And so now what you'll watch, if you go back and watch it again, those night scenes won't be quite as dark. I think
that's neat. I didn't know that.
Well, you're welcome.
I think, one of the reasons for that is our show is finished in HDR, which means high dynamic range. So the blacks are really black and the whites are really white. And again, like the being in the Atmos studio with 18 speakers, I'm looking at a like $10,000 monitor with the best possible HDR color, and we pushed it a little bit darker than we should have, because when it goes out to normal people's TVs, it looked too dark.
That explains the Battle of Winterfell.
Yeah, no, nothing explains the Battle of Winterfell.
So, it was funny when Jude and I first started watching season 2, we were fully expecting more of season 1. Yeah. In terms of like how ridiculous the show was, because that's what we fell in love with originally was, just season 1's kind of like myriad of weird
It's a
choices.
bit silly.
Yeah, a little bit silly. And as we were watching it, I was like, oh my God, it's getting good.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like this or not. But, by the end of season 2, I was fully on board. You guys did an amazing job kind of turning the show into something that we could actually take seriously and really enjoy. So what I wanted to ask you was, what were the challenges of doing post-production for a TV show that shoots like a movie? Because you guys obviously had to shoot everything all at once, and you guys had to put it together as you were going, out of order. So I was just wondering, the movie style shooting, did that add any particular challenge to your job?
Yeah, it's shot. Our show is shot, and this is definitely a season 1 thing that we carried over style-wise. Is it's not very cutty. You'll notice that the camera kind of moves around, or if there's a discussion with two blind people who, if it's an intimate conversation, they're almost touching, right? Mm-hmm. And so you can't do traditional. You could do traditional coverage of like over this shoulder and over that shoulder, but we don't do a lot of traditional coverage. So we're on shots a lot longer, which is challenging because it's hard to, if you want the scene to pick up pace a little bit, you got to cut. So, in some instances we of course had to keep the show moving at the right pace. We try to be pretty consistent with that. We mentioned with the visual effects. I was talking to some of the vendors after we finished season 2, and these are not that there's really TV visual effects and feature visual effects. Like all visual effects, we all want it to look feature worthy, right? But we really went for it. And Chris, right, our VFX supervisor, is so detail oriented and really made sure every shot was just pixel perfect. And, you know, that's not done on a lot of TV shows. I work on The Sinner, and I think the budget on The Sinner for my visual effects was tiny, and and we had quite a bit, and the schedule was, you know, you work on more. That's for USA, so it's, you know, it does have commercials, and it's on a different schedule, and you just don't have time a lot of, you know, but for this show, again, Apple was able to give us the time that we really needed to make this show. We didn't want to put one mediocre visual effects shot up there, and so, you know, they're all, in my opinion, feature quality effects. Nice. And that takes time and money. You know, not every studio wants to spend that kind of money or time. So
my next question is more of a logistical thing. Christian Camargo and Jonathan Tropper have all talked about the struggles of working in like really rainy, cold environments when filming. And I know you guys film in Canada, is that correct?
Yeah, Toronto.
Okay, Toronto. Okay, so can you give me a little bit of a backstory or reason why the filming takes place in those areas where you know the weather's going to be a bit tough, why you guys wouldn't move to a more temperate climate and maybe make the work a little bit easier?
Yeah, I mean, this show, you know, season 1 was shot in Vancouver, which is beautiful. You know, we had a little bit of trouble matching the grandeur of the forests on the West Coast. You know, around Vancouver, they're very different than the forests in Toronto. So we actually used some footage from season 1. You know, some B-roll. But you know, I as far as a more temperate, there's so much that goes into why, you know, productions shoot where they do. Money is one. Having access to this show almost shot in Massachusetts because of another thing that will bring a production to a certain location is a unique location that they're looking for. Like there was I think it was an old asylum or something that was all broken down, and Jonathan loved it, and just, you know, so sometimes the creatives are inspired by something that is, you know, because at the beginning of a show you have scouts looking in different areas when you're starting out. We weren't sure where, we knew it was going to be East Coast, but we weren't sure where C was going to shoot. And you know, I think the winter added something, you know, to, obviously we couldn't have done the ice, all that, if it wasn't. And there's such a nice contrast now with season 3, which is spring summer, which will be a very fresh new color palette. The other thing that makes it tricky when the weather's changing is, you know, the battles in 8 were shot over weeks, right? Mm-hmm. And there were some days that it was literally a blizzard, and there were other days there was no snow at all and the sun was out. And it's up to post to do what we can to
make
you know,
it all
so
look
we,
like the same day.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
and so what we end up doing is adding snow and atmosphere to the shots where it wasn't. And one of the trickiest things is if there's hard light, like there's a shot of Baba, and he's sliding across the ice before he climbs the rope to get, you know, the ice is already broken, and you can still see him cross through a piece of hard sunlight, you know, which makes no sense because it's snowing, and every other shot there's no sun, and you know, we do what we can in color and in visual effects to minimize that kind of stuff. There's also like snow on the ground in some shots. There was snow on the ground and others not, so we had to digitally add snow on the ground to some scenes for continuity.
Let me ask you, was there a particular part of season 2 that you just really loved working on, that was like your favorite part of the season?
My favorite episode is 5, because when I read that script and all the characters got together at that dinner, which I find, like, I love super awkward family scenes. So that was so delightful to me, because you're waiting the whole season for everybody to get together, right? And so you're delivered that. There weren't a lot of visual effects in that episode. There weren't a lot of, except for Propensa, the stuff we talked about, putting the castle in where the blue screen is. But it was such a great character episode, and it set up, the end of the season. Working on 8, the final episode, is unlike anything I think any of us had done. Like, there just aren't many TV shows out there like our finale. It was like almost a half hour of battle.
Yeah, I know Vader gave it kind of a hard time, but I was super.
It was cool. I just had questions.
I know, but like I was super impressed. I think it should go down in Guinness as the longest blind battle scene ever put to film. I mean, it was very impressive.
Yeah, and seeing what visual effects can do. If you could have seen that sequence with the ice breaking, we shot that in the pool. We shot that on an area where there were those rocks, but it was just snowy ground, and seeing it all come together, stitching it together, and with visual effects, adding a bunch more soldiers, watching that come together is really exciting. I loved working on that. Or like the wedding in 4. There's like 300 people or something at a wedding, and there was, I think, on set there were 10, and
that's crazy.
We had to, so that whole amphitheater was, it's called tiling, where you shoot the same extras in various different outfits, and you can kind of spread them out. But hopefully, when people that watch that scene think, oh, we got 300 people together to watch it.
Oh yeah, it's seamless.
You sold me.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about post-production is it's when people don't notice it that you've done your job. It's when people actually notice it where you've kind of screwed up. And I got to tell you, like, this season, I didn't notice any of that stuff.
Yeah, see, it's like the stuff I give a hard time to isn't the way things look, it's the why.
Yeah.
It's like the ice on the river looks like ice. It's like I want to know how the hell they make that ice. That looks really good. It's just
how
like,
they get that tractor blade all the way up there.
Oh yeah. Was the tractor scoop? Was that a digital effect or was that real?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite digital effects. I love the tractor scoop moment. It's all digital.
I grew up on a farm, and I used to drive those tractors around all the time, and I know those things are big and heavy. And Alex drives giant Tonka trucks for a living, so I know those things will fuck you up, man. So I was just really curious how that was. That's really neat.
Yeah. What we ended up shooting for that were stunt guys on ratcheted. So they have a pole, not a pole. They have a string attached to their back, and at a certain moment they're all pulled back, like violently pulled back. That way, and then we added some digital bodies there as well. But I love how that sequence turned out. It's very visceral. All of the arrows, everything, like, Honey was arrows. There are no arrows. Those are all us. And, there can't be, obviously. But
so that kind of brings me to a question, and it has nothing to do with C. No, but it's a visual effects thing. Like there's the thing with Alec Baldwin right now, right? Where that person was unfortunately shot and stuff. So the difference between prop guns and using a gun with the visual, with the muzzle flashes and stuff, I always feel like you can tell when a gun's being used for real or if it's been digitally put in there with the muzzle flashes and stuff. Is that going to mess things up going forward? Because I know there's a lot of people that are vowing, I'm not going to use real guns on set anymore and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of curious your thoughts on that.
And somewhat of an appropriate reaction because it was so horrible what happened. And so I don't understand how that possibly could have happened. And it's a real tragedy. I mean, honestly, a lot of it has to do with how the actor is holding the gun and the way they react when it's being shot. If that's sold well, muzzle flashes, I've done in Warrior, we do a bunch of muzzle flashes. It's such a simple visual effect. I agree with you. Our vis effects supervisor is always saying real is real. You always want to, if you can get it in camera,
right,
that's always going to be best. We there's a baby I don't know if I should say there's a baby. Never mind.
Okay.
I gave away a season 3 thing.
We'll cut
We
that out.
knew about that. I think somebody posted it on Instagram.
Well, somebody's pregnant, so there's a baby.
Yeah. Okay, I guess that's not a huge shocker.
It sounds like there's a time jump between season 2 and 3.
Bazinga, we got one. All right.
That goes into my next question perfectly, because we've theory crafted a couple of things about what's going to happen in season 3. Is there anything that we were on point with that you don't want to spoil anything for the rest of the audience, but you guys watch our show, and I know Tropper was like, sometimes you were freaking right on, and it started making me worry. So is there anything for season 3 that you can talk about to kind of get people excited as to what's going to happen? Because we know it's a whole new ball game now.
It is. It is a whole new ball game. I don't want to obviously give away too much of the story. You guys talk about the Ganites a lot, and we'll finally see them.
Oh, cool.
I think I can say that, but it's springtime, so there's like flowers and there's vines, and
Are there any more Stargate Atlantis actors making an appearance?
Not that I know of. Although I've never seen Stargate Atlantis, so I couldn't even tell you who the actors are on that. So maybe there are some new characters, some really great new characters. Obviously you guys saw I know you weren't all that impressed with the bomb at the end of season 2.
No, it was a good bomb, but we were just like, oh, he made dynamite.
Yeah, we were expecting something more.
We thought he was going to cure blindness by reading a book.
Tropper called us out on that. He's like, that's a stupid idea. You guys are idiots.
Yeah, I saw that. It's a game changer in a way, because they're creating enormous bombs, right? And I can say that's going to come into play in season 3. Yeah, so that's going to change things a lot.
There's going to be explosions in season 3.
Yes.
There's going to be explosions. Yeah.
Actually, I saw a behind-the-scenes photo that Jonathan posted on Instagram of one of the bigger explosions for season 3, and I was like, oh, I take back what I said, bro. That's super cool.
I also think it has a big impact just in the sense of like how loud it is and how it would mess with the Iuras out there.
Oh, yeah.
Which, by the way, for everyone out there listening, Chris was the first one who I think kind of schooled us on how to pronounce that word in your YouTube comment.
Iura. Did I? Yeah.
Iura.
Iura, and it's funny. Except Jason and Dave Bautista just pronounce it differently, like with a much more kind of Spanish vibe to it. Igoda, it's very, and it's their own, that's how the two of them say it. They're brothers, so okay. But
Iura.
Iuras. Yeah, but explosions for blind people. That's the other thing too. Like, imagine that, like. The force of that and not being able to even see what the hell it is, or how much of the world just went away,
and like the smoke and the smell afterwards and stuff like that.
Yeah, the concussion of it itself, if you're close by, that's a big deal too. Yeah, I can understand that. I have one final question for you on my end, and this is kind of more of a personal question. It doesn't have much to do with C, but if there's any project out there, we know the world of sci-fi, the world of producing these freaking fantastical movies that take place on the big screen, whether it's Star Wars or Marvel or whatever, what is a project that you have just been dying to, like, oh man, I wish I could work on that franchise?
With that, I don't have to hesitate. Star Wars. I'm such a Star Wars geek. So was Jonathan, actually. Jonathan and I share that. We had we did not. I even liked the last film in the latest trilogy. When I told Jonathan that, he went, "Chris, that movie made no sense." And I was like,
"He's right.
He's correct."
Yeah, he is. But I was like, "Yeah, but C-3PO saves the day."
You probably look at these movies though with a little different eye than the rest of us do, though. So.
Yeah, well, and I just that franchise. So I got interested in film Star Wars came out when I was 11, which is exactly the right age for Star Wars. I saw it 16 times in the movie theater.
Yeah.
I was obsessed. It was my first obsession, and my first film that I ever made was I got my dad's 8mm camera, and my older brother was my props guy, and I had all my models and my action figures, and I shot this mostly stop motion little film about Star Wars and all the characters, and awesome. So that's really the franchise that got me.
There's so many people in the movie industry. It's like I was 7 when Star Wars came out. It changed my life. It really did. I was a nerd ever since. But there's so many people in our age group, right, that are in the business or wanted to be in the business because of Star Wars. And it's just. I know so many people that made movies with their action figures and all this stuff, and it's just it's crazy.
I was lucky enough to go to Skywalker Ranch when I was in advertising because we were working with ILM on a project. So you take a tour of that mansion there that's on Skywalker Ranch that Lucas built, and it is full of original Star Wars memorabilia and the original R2-D2 unit. And I was like, can I touch R2-D2? Is that okay? Yeah.
What do you think of the tech that they're using to make shows like the Mandalorian? What is that thing called? The volume. I'm sure you're pretty interested in that, right?
That's amazing because not only is it, taking care of a lot of posts while you're shooting. Those high tech. When we shot, there was a scene with Dave Bautista that we had to reshoot later on in Florida, and I was on that set that day. And they had one of those screens that you can use because it not only does it create a background, a photoreal background, but it lights the characters as well, and it is a game changer, and it's fascinating. I remember when I met with the head of Apple's post, Cynthia Stegner. She the first thing she said was, "I want these visual effects to be every bit as good as The Mandalorian or anything else out there." That was our bar, and I think we achieved it. Barely on schedule, but we achieved it.
I think it did. I mean, there's moments. Obviously, it's a completely different genre. It's more of the space sci-fi. So there's going to be moments where obviously things are not real in the real world.
Well, sure.
Which doesn't it kind of lends itself to being a little bit more fantastical. C is much more grounded in reality, so the visual effects have to blend in perfectly with the surroundings, as opposed to Mandalorian. Oh, there's a giant white spider with 9 legs. Obviously that's not real. That's cool. Right on. So you want to be involved in Star Wars? Do you have an idea for a show, or you just want to be in there?
I would just
call Dave Filoni and be like, "Bro, get me in."
Yeah. We'll see. The rest of the next little while is going to be C and Warrior.
Okay.
So I'm not looking for my next project, but I would never. Oh my God, that would be a childhood dream to come true.
Nice.
To work on.
That's awesome. All right, Chris. I think we're fresh out of questions, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. This is really fun.
Chris, is there anywhere that people can find you on the social medias and follow you, or?
I'm a Arrudagram on Instagram.
Okay.
Easy to remember.
Right on. Very good. Vader, do you want to say goodbye to the people and shout out your social media?
Hey, man, thanks again for hanging out with us today. Really appreciate that. Love what you do. I really do. As much crap as I give the show, I still watch it religiously every day. or when it's on, I guess. Not every day, but you know.
Yeah.
And thanks to everybody watching. You can find me at Matt Vader 74 on the social medias and Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and stuff, and
Jude, you had to head out, so go ahead.
Yeah, Chris, I just wanted to say goodbye. I have to go pick up my son from school, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on. I'm so glad I got the chance to talk to you. And
it's so
I'll leave you alone
to
with
talk
this
to you guys.
sausage fest.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
Jude.
you so much.
Katie, how about you, bud?
Chris, thank you so much, not only for commenting on our YouTube videos, but coming on our little show here. And please pass on our thanks to your teams as well for listening to the show. And like we get a real kick every time they reach out to us and say like, oh yeah, we like that episode and stuff like that. So it means a lot to us to know that like, you guys you like care and you're cool about, having us kind of poke fun at the show and stuff like that. But you guys do amazing work, and you're a big part of that key element that makes the show what it is, which is, the invisible special effects and delivering it on time and on budget and all that good stuff. So thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a real pleasure getting to talk to you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. For the fan interaction is something that I feel like has been lacking in recent years, when fans poke fun at something or have fun,
right?
And the production crew is like, they like scoff at it, like, how dare you fans say something. You guys are the polar opposite of that, and it's absolutely wonderful. I've had a blast interacting with Natalie Brofman. Sylvia Hoax DMs me on Instagram all the time.
Yeah,
and she's like,
what other show's showrunner would reach out to
exactly
you?
right? Yeah, we don't. This is like unheard of in our realm. This is really, really cool. You guys,
it's a great group of people, and we have so much fun watching you guys. So keep doing what you're doing. I'm going to have to watch some of your Foundation shows, just because I'm
well, Foundation, we have a good time with Foundation.
Yeah, we do.
Invasion, on the other hand,
I've only seen the first episode of Invasion, and so I don't want to say
Well,
it.
it's
I
just
shouldn't
that
say it.
for
I'll get
the
in
next
trouble
5
if I say
episodes.
it.
Yeah, it's a real slow burn. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us on this episode, very special episode of the Salty Nerd Podcast. Thank you, Chris, again for joining us. And if you guys want to follow us, come to our Discord app. We have a group chat specifically dedicated to C. So if you love the show as much as we do, come over to saltynerd.discord.com and jump into that chat room. It's publicly accessed. Anybody can jump in and say hi. And we'd love to have you over there. And that's it. Signing off for the Salty Nerd Podcast. Thank you guys so much, and stay salty, my friends.